Okay, and we're back. First thing I'm gonna do quickly is remember we talked about that weirdness with the alpha kind of funkying out, even though everything looks peachy. Note that in add attribute, they now have something I should have read. This only changes defaults used by export fob. So basically, we shouldn't have done that. Should have done just the did it like we did with P scale. We have a bind export fob. So let's just put down a bind export blanc blanc, and we'll call it alpha with a capital A for no apparent reason, even though nothing else in Houdini uses capital letters. They want you to for the word alpha. And it just is magically knows that alpha is the alpha of it. Honestly, in my opinion, I think that things like that should be an option here to add stuff like that. Okay, so let's take a look. We see it moving. It's got new colors. I should probably move back here a little bit. Kind of slow because there's so many of them, etc. But it does kind of what we see there and kind of what we like, right? Okay. Again, artistically, this thing's had changed, but this isn't an art course. So you get the concept. Time to move forward to the big dogs. And the big dogs, I mean, is how do we render this stuff? We're going to eventually render these guys together, right? And we're going to want them to look like they're in the same world and have a neat shader like we saw at the beginning. So let's get to that. Let's start by doing a couple strange things. Over here in the material palette, you see up here, I'm going to grab just a couple default total craptastic simple things. One of them is clay, okay, and the other one is glow. Now, if you come back here, and I could have basically put those onto this and rah, rah, rah. By now, you probably know I don't like things like that. It puts them over here in shop, and my problem with that is I kind of like to have them all, everything connected, you know, encapsulated in here. So I'm actually going to put down a shader network, a shop network here that we're going to call shaders. And forgive me if you've already heard me say this a million times from other tutorials. We're going to put it inside of these guys. So I'm basically going to go out here to this clay and glow guys. I'm actually going to cut those puppies. So now we have nothing out there. And we just have this in here. And the reason I do these things is because someday in the future, I'm going to go, oh, I want to do a disintegration thing. Let me grab this, copy and paste this over to some other big giant network thing and try to make it happen on, you know, some character's face or something. And I'll forget that the shader's somewhere else or something like that. And so I like to kind of have it all together. And that also, the way we do that is we put in material, sop, pop, plops, whatever you call these guys. And we basically say, I want this guy to have the guys in here. Okay, we're going to change these in a second. Glow is actually going to be where we put on the particles. Clay is the one we're going to change on. That's the one I'm going to put on the disintegratee, or whatever. I'm just going to call this the disintegrate shader. How's that sound? Very simple, very easy. Okay, so this is going to get the particle material, and I'm going to grab it from, I'm going to say we want to grab it from inside of here. Move this over so you can see it. Inside of here, inside of shaders, and hit particles. Then we're going to hit accept. Whoa! Except at this point, you know, I'd probably complained about this a million times. I'm going to do it relative. You know why? Because again, I'm going to copy this into some other file somewhere, and it'll break if it doesn't have that relative reference. Why they don't default to a relative reference, I don't know. That bugs the living heck out of me and trips me up all the time. So I have a little thing in my brain that goes off and goes whoop, whoop, whoop whenever I see an absolute reference. Sometimes we need it, rarely though. Okay, so disintegration shader. Again, we're going to have this guy, and we're going to bring him from here. We're just going to hit accept. Whoa, accept. This needs to be that because otherwise things go horrible. Okay, and then that will be our shaders. Now you notice the merge has a little I'm having trouble thing here. The reason it does is because they don't have the same attributes. And you might not be able to see this because it might be off the screen, but it says mismatch of attributes detected. So when we cleaned up, I mean, our attributes over here are pretty clean. We have alpha, CD, age, da 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 da. We would have to actually have the same attributes here. there's actually something we can't. I mean, its big problem is that there's no p scale and no velocity here. This is just a little guy. So I'm actually going to put down just to stop it from complaining, because that burns my eyes. I'm going to put down a point wrangle, and I'm going to tell it to just give it a, and again, when we're adding attributes, sometimes it's quicker just to use a point wrangle. And again, I encourage you to be able to use both these things. It's a little programish-y to use point wrangle, and so I don't like to go to it forever, but for quick things, I really love it. I'm going to say it has this attribute, float attribute, that I'm going to call p-scale, and then a velocity that we're going to give it zilcho, zilcho, zilcho. We probably need to add more attributes to get things to that, or we need to clean off the ones we don't need at this point. For instance, here we probably don't need anything except for, like in this point, we don't need age and life and ID anymore. We really just need velocity, color, and we don't even need normal now. Probably just velocity and color, right? Oh, geez. Sorry, p scale and alpha, the things we just added. It's like I'm insane. P scale, which is really hard to spell, and alpha. And I'm going to do the same thing. This guy here should have the same stuff. I'll do it above here so it cleans things off that way. C, P scale alpha, I guess it would need to have it normal. Wait a minute, this guy doesn't, right? Alpha, CDP, P scale. Am I missing something here? Alpha, CDP, or sorry, CDP, P scale, and alpha. I think it's because I'm singing out loud. I'm missing. Oh, alpha is not there. Okay, so we'll throw that in as well. Anyways, not that it really matters. It's just to keep that thing from complaining. It really doesn't matter too much. Although it actually is useful to have this as an example because we're going to use that later. So it's actually helpful. Anyway, so now merge is happy and doesn't have that. Do you really care? Did it really matter? It really didn't. I just am OCD about stuff like that. The other things I'm OCD about is having a final thing saying, this is the guy we're rendering. And I usually call it out. And I always make it black for no reason whatsoever. Okay, so we're great and we're all done. But wait, there's more. First thing you'll notice is we haven't done anything with shaders. These are still basically kind of simple shaders. Let's check out the particles for the nonce. I'm basically giving it a glow shader, right? And I'm gonna say that although we could mess with or muck with the glow shader a little bit, I feel like it's probably pretty cool the way it is. I'm gonna change a couple things. Here's what we're gonna do. The fun way to do this, and again, unfortunately, this is also some versions of DNT tend to crash on this, so fun might not be great, is instead of, you might want to go, hit this guy and render and have it pop up, which I'm all for that. But using this guy, this render view, although, let's make him big. I turn off auto update usually because I don't like it to crash when I'm changing stuff, which kind of tends to happen sometimes. Let's have it look through the camera and let's hit that and see what happens. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, I'm scrolling down to, whoa, it's a little large. Whoa, it's really large. I am zooming back way the heck. Okay, so apparently it started doing them by default. Now you might notice there's something wrong here. See if you can figure out what it is. Why are they getting such gigunders of p-scales? In other words, those are huge. Partly because we set our thing up to do the size, but we didn't actually put in sizes that were appropriate. We just left it at 0 to 1. So since our entire sphere is 0 to 1, that's probably pretty huge. So let's make it smaller. As a matter of fact, let's give it some sort of overall scale. Hey, that sounds familiar. Didn't we do that once? Remember? Particle size. Bum, ba, dum, ba, dum, bum. That is exactly where we would use particle size. I'm going to paste copy relative references there. The min, I still think the min can be 0. I'm fine with it go down to 0. If you didn't want it to go down to 0, like over here, you could actually change that. I usually keep the fit in there just because I like to have the option. But so that's our first thing we notice. So with the P scale properly set, and the camera is a little funky because we're upside down, let's take a look what it sees. Okay, so now we're seeing something that kind of looks like what we'd like. There's nothing really super magic about that. Nothing super magic about that, but we've got our guy. I guess I would say, here's my first thing. I feel like there's a couple things to do. This glow ramp rate is how much it falls off as you go to the edge. I would take that down. I would also turn on mission. That means that these little guys are actually going to light up because we're going to put a variant of the clay shader in the other guy. These guys are actually going to light that guy up. So I'm going to put a thing on that just for fun. Let's see how that changes things. Do, 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 do. Perhaps this is too slow because there's too many particles. I'm getting worried that isn't different. Are we doing that? It might be giving us that weird bug I mentioned once where sometimes you have to actually put the name of the shader here as well, or it doesn't recognize it. Okay, so we're going to live with this for now, but I'm going to complain about it vociferously. The shader out here has to be for the particles, and I think this goes away there, but sometimes it doesn't know this for particles, even though clearly we've done everything right, or it isn't doing it. The other thing I would point out, I mean, I don't want to make too many creative choices here, but I guess I don't mind the alpha going down that much. I feel like the overall size could be smaller because we've got so many of these guys, but also I just feel like overall they seem kind of bright. And the way we can take things down overall, we could change the color as well, but since we're already saying tint with it, we could just do this. And then that should bring the colors down overall because inside of the shader, it multiplies this glow color with that. And so you see it's a little less blinding in your face-ish. I also feel like, see how there's those white, this adding up? I claim that that's because we have our alpha going down too soon, maybe? Because it's based on the life and they go up there. Let's see what that does. Like, I kind of feel like I don't want to, I don't know, maybe I'm going too nuts. We should probably move forward to the cool part. But yeah, it's a minor difference, but I kind of do like that. As we go forward, I might change a couple other things later on to massage. But what I really want to get to is the next bit, which is mostly going to be in the next lesson. I'm just going to set it up first in this lesson. And here it is, which is forget about this stuff for a while. Forget about particles. Forget about everything except for our sphere. We need, first let's give it that material. Or did I already do that? Yeah, I did. We gave it our disintegration shader, which, as you know right now, is simply clay. Now here's my question. I want to know if this gets overridden inside of here, like hopefully it should be. Let's find out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If it looks like a glow shader and is partially see-through, we'll know things have gone horribly askew. They have not. As you can see, it is like that. Now your first thought is, hey, check it out. It's already working. Oh my gosh. No, it isn't. I mean, if you were making craptastic stuff for a really crappy movie or something, it would. But obviously, what it's doing is it's grabbing the color of the point because the inside of the shader itself, the clay shader by default, which we've changed to disintegrate shader and probably misspelled. It is misspelled. Oh, I hate that. By default, it takes it uses the point color, and the point color is in fact on here. Now we can't actually have it use the point opacity, but on top of that, even if we could, I don't want to. And the reason I don't want to is because of this, no matter how many, I mean, you could actually make this super, super high res geometry, I guess, but the gag here is what if you were taking this from a character that's moving around where you didn't want to increase the geometry or couldn't for some reason, or it would be super heavy if you did. In other words, that would be a cop out if we did that because we know the math that actually made this line. We did it already in something else. All we need to do is get that math into the shader instead of relying on it to come through with the geometry. Most people do that normally. A lot of places would do that and stuff, but you and I are way too geniusy for that. So where they would do that and have all these problems later when the geometry gets super heavy, or if the geometry has changing point counts that'll mess them up or something else, these are the kind of things that would mess them up and they would just go peachy keen. We're not going to. We're going to dive into the clay shader. And the first thing we're going to see is that it's relatively simple. It's just got this stuff. Okay? So we don't even need to know what a lot of this stuff does. All we care about is that at some point it gets a color. and that goes into it, goes into its inputs into the surface model. And so what we care about is taking the math that we have already done. Remember way back here in animation, and we had thresholds, we had turbulation, noise, and da da da. This math, this exact same math, we're going to put in that shader. And you're going to say, what? No, this was a point bop. It has nothing to do with shaders. We will, and we'll put it in, and we'll connect all these guys up, so it'll be the same thing. It'll match up, and it'll be all genius. Okay, so come back for the next lesson, and we'll hit that.